We live in a strange time. Guys, welcome back to World War III on this beautiful Memorial Day. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's about, maybe right now it's about 75 degrees. I'm trying to set the vibe. I'm trying to set the vibe for the video right now. It's about 75 degrees, 11 a.m. Eastern, whatever. But guys, I was thinking late last night about the evolution of the human species in terms of our technology advancements versus our actual mind and actual human being evolution with our thought process. And I came up with the analogy, it's like giving cavemen nukes. That's where we're at right now. Because if you take if there was a graph and you had two different lines, and one line was the technology evolution of what we've done the past 30 or 40 years. And the other line was the evolution of human beings, the way we think. You would have the technology go way up and you would have human evolution. It's literally like right now, if China does something to Taiwan, we're literally sitting here asking, like, okay, does that kick off World War III? Like, that's a legitimately, if China does something, and they've been threatening to do something for the longest time, it's just not like this far-fetched idea of, oh, what if America invades Europe or anything? Like, China, they want Taiwan. What if they do something? Does that legitimately start World War III? Does that bring us closer to World War III? And it got me thinking, it's like, this whole idea about human evolution and our technology advances, it rapidly improves, exponential growth gets better and better. By 2050, all the stuff right now will seem archaic. By 2070, all the stuff in 2050 will seem archaic, but our minds are not evolving at the same rate. So it's like, are we destined to blow ourselves up? Are we destined to have a major nuclear war? And it's like, oh, the deterrent is we've never had a nuclear war. Yeah, you never have a nuclear war until you have one. You know what I'm saying? Like, it never happens until, oh, it happens. A full-scale war never happens until, oh, World War I happens. World War I wasn't that bad, now World War II happens. It's like it gets worse and worse and worse. World War III, World War IV. What's next? It is just the whole idea of how close we actually are in the 21st century. The human, we have not evolved. It's like we have these nukes, like nukes shouldn't have even been made. And I understand the whole Nazi thing and you gotta stop them. I get it. Nazis were making nukes. We had to beat them to it. I understand that. But it's just like the overall human evolution. Nukes do nothing good unless it's a situation with what happened in World War II is the only option to where we were the only ones. We created them faster than anyone else. We were the only ones that had them. We knew if we dropped them, the war was going to end. Now, dropping a nuke starts a war, starts a nuclear war. How does that feel? Because everyone has them, and having a massive military, us having a bigger military than China, in terms of war really doesn't matter because of the use of nuclear weapons. Now, it does matter in terms of influence, and that's why China is so, pushing right now to become the number one superpower on the earth, have the biggest military. They are upping their military budget exponentially yearly. It's like, oh, is it 250 billion, 260? It's way more than that. They're not going to tell anyone. It would be dumb for them to tell people how ridiculously crazy they're getting with their military budget, but it's going up significantly every single year because they want influence. That's the one thing having a massively powerful army gives you, influence over the entire world, and that's what China wants. But it's just this idea to where our technology is evolving faster than we can evolve at this point. That's what's happened. And it's a major issue. And just another thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to anytime there's a tragic event in the United States, especially this last one with the elementary school, just horrible. I am really proud of how many Americans are starting to realize, and I think the pandemic opened a lot of people's eyes. It's the idea they will try, and this is not a conspiracy level, thinking. This is, there's, examples after examples of this happening. They will try and take an extremely emotional event, when the general public is in an extremely emotional state as a way to take people's rights away. And when it comes to things like guns and the ARs, it's such a unique argument. It's like your only argument is right after a mass shooting happens. And I understand they're going to say, listen, if we didn't have guns, we wouldn't have mass shootings. That's why we're arguing for when one happens. But it's just the idea of using people when they're in an emotional state and saying, listen, do you want more kids to die? Do you want this to keep happening? It's really a guilt thing. This happens so many times throughout history, even just back when Trump got banned. You always need an event. You need a reason. The government needs reasons to do stuff. Like the government wants more information on people. 9/11 happens, the Patriot Act comes in. The Patriot Act is seen as something good. We need to do something to combat terrorism. Look at what they did to our Twin Towers. It was a horrible terrorist event. We have to have more security. And citizens need to sacrifice their personal freedoms for the betterment of everyone's safety. With the pandemic, yes, many small businesses are going to die, but for the betterment of everyone's safety, you have to sacrifice your own rights. Right after a school shooting, yes, we're going to have stricter background checks, whatever they're pushing, whether it's stricter background checks, banning ARs, I don't know, whatever they're pushing. We need to have this. You need to sacrifice your rights so we can keep everyone safe. When they try and take people's rights, number one, they'll never give them back to you. But number two, this is what I always stress. They want it to be a voluntary thing. They want you to say, yes, I am willing to give this up. Yes, I am willing to give up my personal privacy because I don't want 9/11 happening again. Yes, I am willing to give up my guns because I don't want Sandy Hook happening again, or the shootings that we've just had, or whatever mass shooting to happen again. It's a voluntary thing. They don't want it to make it look like they're taking your rights. No. You're giving your rights. And I'll say this, pandemics are extremely hard to maneuver. But I think with what happened during the pandemic, you look at, this is one of the very unique things about a situation like that. Because of different states having, Republican versus Democrat governors, just the different way these states handled, human rights. And you've got the Democratic states being really strict. I'm sure some of them, some of it's a power thing. Some of it's, we're trying to keep people safe. We don't know how lethal this virus is. It's extremely complicated. Absolutely. Like, I had such a simplistic view of the pandemic, but over time, it's just there's like when massive governments deal with pandemics and you don't know how powerful, how dangerous it's going to be, it's very tough to deal with it. But people understand now when there is a crisis and when people are most vulnerable, that is the time they will prey on your emotions. They will use your emotions against you. And no one is saying, listen, I have no clue how we solve the gun debate. I'll be honest with you guys, but it's always after a shooting when people are most emotional, using it to guilt trip you to give up your right, to want to give up your rights. It's like, if you give up your rights, 24 kids aren't dead. That's what they want. That's what they want you to believe. That's what they want you, they want it to be that linear. They want you to see it just like that. Like, if I am not so selfish, if I give up, like, the government's not going to do anything. To me, guns, and I've said this before, guns work as a checks and balances for the citizens and for the government. You don't want the government to get too powerful. That's why the citizens are armed. That's my personal opinion. Now, we can debate the ARs. We can debate the ARs. We can debate how old you should be able to be, to buy a gun. But again, the major issue with giving into that is it will never stop. They will start with one thing. Then they will say, because the crime went down when we did this, we need to go further to get it to go all the way down. And what I fear would happen if you end up banning ARs and you start banning all these things, everyone's going to start using pistols. And pistols aren't as lethal, but you can still do damage with pistols. And when everyone starts using pistols, the pistol murder rate will go up. And then their argument would be, look at what we did. We banned ARs. It went so down. Now the pistols are up. We need to ban pistols, or we need to ban semi-automatics, and things like that. So once it starts, it doesn't stop. That's the fear. Now, in a perfect world, there's some sort of resolution in the gray area to where we're not going to be banning the guns, but we also don't want 18-year-olds to have ARs, because I don't want 18-year-olds to have ARs, guys. I really don't. I think it's completely reckless. I'll say that. The issue is when you give them an inch, they're gonna use that inch to argue why they need to take a mile. So they're gonna say, listen, we banned this, and now there's no more deaths via assault weapons because we banned them. Now we need to ban the other things that are killing everyone. You give them an inch, they're going to try and take a mile. It doesn't stop. In a perfect world, it stops. We do something, we have a checks and balances, we say people need, the right to the Second Amendment, but there are stipulations. It is a little ridiculous. We as a society, we have an obligation to protect our society, and that includes not allowing 18-year-olds to legally buy ARs. I think that. That's what I think. Now, I'm sure people are going to be like, you need freedoms, whatever, but it's like, there needs to be some sort of, we have an obligation as a society to protect ourselves. But again, the issue is if it starts getting too far, where you start letting, all of these restrictions come into play, they're going to want more. They're going to want more and more and more and more. And I think that's what a lot of people are scared of. But I've just been so happy with people, especially during these last few shootings. They've been horrible. They're disgusting. But people are really looking at mainly with a level head. And it's just such a weird dynamic politically. So many people are using these horrific mass shootings for political leverage. It's crazy. It's not surprising. Surprising is not the word, but the dynamic of using such horrible tragedies to, quote, strengthen your argument, which is what they're doing. Oh my God, it's so unique and so weird. And I understand it's like, well, there's school shootings. That's why we need to ban guns. But it's just like, goodness, this is a tragedy. Can we, before you take our rights, can we at least process this, please? I mean, my goodness. But I just thought that was an interesting dynamic that's happening right now in America when it comes to these horrible events that we really got to limit. But again, guys, I'm trying to explain. It's so complicated. It's not as black and white as someone on CNN saying we need universal background checks. Someone on Fox saying people need their freedom. It's not that simple one way or the other. I'm hoping there's a gray area, and we have checks and balances to hope that there is a gray area and it doesn't get too one-sided. Because something, obviously does seem like it needs to be done when we see these horrific events, and then the whole idea of offering more security to these classrooms. And it is kind of weird, like, people get really weirded out when someone says, well, you should have armed police officers in elementary schools. And you think about it, and it's like, well, is it a prison? But it's like, that is our most valuable, prized possessions. Those are our children that cannot protect themselves. Shouldn't we be protecting them? Like, shouldn't there be a dynamic to where at elementary schools where there's third and fourth graders who cannot protect themselves, they're our most prized possessions? Shouldn't we be protecting them? Maybe the next $40 billion shouldn't go to Ukraine. Maybe it should go to funding protection of schools. Again, guys, I'm not... That's just a talking point. I understand there's a lot that goes into that type of money, how it gets spent. It's not that simple. You can't just take $40 million that was going to be shipped off to Ukraine and then spend it with something like that. It's very complicated. I understand that, but it's just the idea of us sending so much money to other nations, especially Ukraine. And that goes back to the whole NATO thing. And I've talked about NATO for so long, guys. I don't want to get into that. I'm having a wonderful day right now, and I don't want to get angry about that, because I've talked about, the whole idea of how America is getting screwed through NATO. It's an agreement. When you make an agreement 70 years ago and your country gets insanely more powerful than every other country in the agreement does not benefit you anymore. I'm going to leave it at that. I hope everyone has a, very nice Memorial Day. It's a beautiful day out. I just wanted to make this video talk about the different dynamics. And then, guys, really the overall point of this video, it's like we're cavemen with nukes. Our technology is getting exponentially better each year, but our human minds are not evolving at the same rate. That is the current dynamic I was thinking about last night. I came to the conclusion that's the whole idea of I was saying this in maybe the last episode I did on this. I was saying, we might need a full-scale nuclear event to where it kills off 80 to 90% of the population, and then we rebuild for us to realize that nukes shouldn't even exist in our society. When any type of weapon that can kill everyone, why does it exist? Seriously, why does it exist? And then you say, well, if Nazi Germany happens again. But it's like, ooh, it's so tough. Like, even, could Nazi Germany destroy the world? Like, I mean, I guess they could if they had the nukes, but still, the dynamics, it's like you have to have the nukes, but you don't want to have the nukes. It's like you want the nukes for security, but what happens when the security starts the war and ends the world? Because that's what can happen. So the dynamics, we want nukes for security, but it doesn't even matter anymore because the nukes are so advanced. Oh, it's so bad, guys. It's so bad. But honestly, like, I don't even know what these videos are. I think they're just like podcasts where I just randomly talk for 15 or 20 minutes. But this is like my podcast thing. I was thinking, yeah, like Welcome to World War III. I mean, let's be honest, it's a badass name. Like, that's a badass name for a podcast. I hope nobody steals it. Welcome to World War III. But that's like my thing, and hopefully I'll just be able to talk about anything. I'm just trying to talk about anything when I do these episodes and things like that. It doesn't have to, maybe I want to branch off from politics. It's just going to be like my overall thing where I can go and just talk about whatever I want to talk about to the camera. I was thinking about where I want to take, Welcome to World War III in these episodes, and they don't just always have to be about politics and things like that. And I was just thinking yesterday about, man, what a disaster this administration has been. Oh, it's been so bad. Like, for as bad as Trump was, I don't know. I might want to debate a Democrat that thinks Biden's doing a good job just to see how, I'm not going to sit here and say Trump was some amazing president, but my God, is it bad right now, guys? It's so bad. There's no leadership. There's no leadership. The dude should be playing with his granddaughter taking Alzheimer's pills every day. What are we doing as a country where an 80-year-old is in office threatening China if they do something to Taiwan? Dude, China and Taiwan. China's going to start World War III for sure. China is going to be the one. But again, it falls on America. Do we want to go to World War III over Taiwan? Is that something America wants to do? There's your question. And then they say, oh, America bombs all these places. Guys, bombing these places, America is not invading countries. There is a distinct difference. But I'm not saying we need to be the police of the world. I'm not even saying that. I think it might be better for America if it can promote peace, hands off. I said we should have a hands-off policy in Europe, but I do still want military agreements with countries in Western Europe. But it's more like, I just want peace at this point, man, because people are freaking out about World War III, and it's like China has wanted Taiwan. They want Taiwan to not be recognized. They want Taiwan. And then Joe Biden comes out and says, we will have military action against China if they take Taiwan. They've been threatening to take Taiwan for years now. So what does that equal? It's scary. It's scary, guys. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.